Hello again, welcome to the week ahead with Alpha Wave Trader. I thought we'd just continue on looking at the S&P 500 for the moment because it is pretty interesting where it's at, and we've been discussing it for a while, so why not follow it along. And it's been an interesting bit of price action over the last week. We've seen a bit of strength on the back of the news about the resumption of trade talks, and that can continue to provide a bit of support leading into that. But just focusing purely on the technical aspects, I think it's worth having a close look at where it's at right now, so you can understand a bit better what I sort of look for and what the opportunities can be. This is the daily chart. I'll start actually with the weekly, just to show you that we have had a bullish development over that last week. You can see here with last week's price action, that's actually created a weekly buy pivot. So that's the bullish development. We actually have the monthly sell pivot in play, and prices have rallied back to the sell zone of the monthly sell pivot, which is why I'm interested in looking for opportunities. But we do now have that weekly buy pivot in place. And look, there is a strong upward trend right here, and it's gone back into a weekly uptrend. So it really is saying that a breakout above those highs can see a continuation. And also we've spent a few years now in this range, and the midpoint of that range comes in around 2700. But we've done a lot of work around this range for quite a while. And of course, all ranges come to an end eventually. And if this range does break out to the upside, well, that could be the beginning of another strong rally like we saw a few years ago, where the market just continued to grind higher and higher. So that is a possibility on the breakout above the all-time highs. And with the weekly buy pivot in place, any selling this week should find support within that weekly buy pivot candle and can eventually turn back up. So I'm just wary about that for starters. A weekly sell pivot straight away from here. So if we did have a bad week and that weekly buy pivot was negated straight away, then it'll be on like Donkey Kong, and you could expect to see a lot of dominoes falling as the market sells off. And I'd expect to see a move something like this, moving back towards even the buy zone of that whole wave, which would be down around 2500. But there's a lot of levels that would need to be broken for that to occur. But this is the sort of setup we're in at the moment, where if the false break of the highs is confirmed again and the market does weaken off, there is a lot of things that will be set off, and the market will need to sell into it, and it can really get quite ugly. So we're at quite an explosive point, and just wanted to point out, that weekly buy pivot is the bullish aspect right now. And going into the monthly quickly, which is pretty much the only thing saying beware right now. That is the monthly sell pivot that was confirmed last month. So we've got the highest price there. Then we do have a close that next month below the low of that highest price, but it has seen quite strong buying support, and it did close above the midpoint of that candle, which is just something to note. But here we are rallying right to the top of that area, and it's up around this area is where I get interested. If the market does turn back down, my first target is often back to the bottom of that candle. And look, if it does bust below there, yeah, watch out. There's a lot of things saying that you're going to see quite a sharp fall below there. So this is definitely still an area where I can be looking for selling opportunities, because we do have the monthly sell pivot in place. But that weekly buy pivot is just a bit of a concern. So the way I'd look at that is go up to a granular level, and just first of all with that daily chart that we're looking at here, just note the sell zone of that whole wave higher. If we're turning down, that's the spot where you're going to find bigger picture selling. And then going into a more granular level, when you're looking at the waves that are developing, and you can see this wave here broke out to a new high when it went above that old high from May. So I'm looking at this wave here as the most recent wave. So that's that wave here. And I can then put in the buy and sell zones of that wave. And you can see prices have respected that. You'll remember I said there would be buying support in this area when prices were up here. And I said there could be a sell-off. And that sell-off came into the buy zone. And we've just had a lot of work done, right close to this buy and sell zone. And with the development of people getting short when the market was looking weak here, and there would have been traders getting short in this weakness, we're now having the alternate move, which is this move to the upside, which is squeezing out a lot of those traders. So you are seeing a short squeeze, and that's what brings prices into this sell zone here. And from here, if we bust out above the all-time highs, I'm saying watch out, but that's not very far away now. Now that prices are up in this sell zone, that's only one night's price action could break out above there. But if we see the daily sell pivot, and that's what I'll be looking for from here, after we've rallied into this zone, if we do see weakness early in this week especially, I'd really like to see that, and we see a failure back below those highs, which is around 29.45 odd, that's going to look pretty interesting to me. First of all, giving targets to the midpoint, which is the point of control of this wave. So that's a good way of setting up trades, is to have an initial target back to the point of control. That's the point where you return to most often. So a failure here, and it looks like an ABC to me. This A leg here, B leg down there, C leg here, as long as it stays below this high, which is the all-time high, and we see the failure, which is the sell-off back below that A leg, and I'll put the B leg in here, and C leg. A failure there back below A would set off the signal. You'd have the initial target to the point of control, but also good chance of it really seeing sharp selling pressure from there. And this is when the dominoes would start to fall. If we saw another failure through those lows, that's when it could extend. We've got the 200-day moving average, that pink line coming through there, which is providing support at the moment. But when it does fail, boy, it really does go. You can see back in the past, it'll do a lot of work, but the moves can be quite large when it does fail through that area. So there'll be a lot of stoppies below there, and also this being the highest low within this little trend. It really is this point here that will say that this whole trend is under threat. So it's failing back below that level, which is around the low 2700s. That's when the big picture selling could come out of the woodwork. So that's why I'm saying there's lots of dominoes set up. And if we do see weakness and it doesn't break out to new highs, there's a chance we could see a move that would threaten the 200-day, which would lead into stoppies below those lows. So it's when you get that domino effect of stoppies leading into bigger stoppies, and that's when you can get those moves that move so fast you can't get on them, and you then see the balancing up of this whole wave higher, and who knows what happens from there. This move may just make it back to that 2700 level and then take off again, or it could go all the way down to the buy zone of this whole wave and then find the buying support, or it could then just fail completely. Lots of options about what can happen. No one knows the future, but when you're looking at a risk reward situation and wondering how can I get into a trade where I don't need to risk too much and the potential upside is large, this is just one of those situations. So it'll be interesting to see how this week's price action plays out. And tonight, look, it could just have a big rally, break out above there, and shoot to the upside. So you might want to wait for the confirmed daily sell pivot and the failure back below that 2950 sort of area before you get overly aggressive on what's going on here, and more confident that we could see this begin to sell off more aggressively to the downside. All right, that's it. I'll come back with more next week.